We are past the point of political analysis. We are now operating in the realm of psychiatric triage. What the American people witnessed late Monday night in Miami was not a press conference. It was not a victory lap following the College National Football Championship. It was a cognitive crime scene. It was a documented, televised forensic exhibit of a mind that is not only snapped, but is actively hemorrhaging the basic faculties required to distinguish reality from delusion. We are no longer discussing policy differences or partisan grievances. We are watching the disintegration of the American executive branch in real time, broadcast to a horrified world that is rapidly calculating the cost of our collective instability. If you are looking for the standard cable news approach where we play a clip, laugh at the gaffe, and move on to the weather, you are in the wrong place. We cannot afford that luxury. The luxury of normalcy died in Miami. What Donald Trump displayed was a textbook anatomy of a geopolitical psychosis. This was a meltdown so severe, so disjointed, and so fundamentally dangerous that it renders the 25th Amendment not just a topic of conversation, but a constitutional mandate. We are watching a man foaming at the mouth, fueled by grievance and delusion, threatening to dismantle the post-World War II global order because his ego was bruised by a lack of applause. Let's strip away the noise and look at the raw data of this event. The setting was Miami. The context was football. But the content was a terrifying stream of consciousness that touched on treason, economic warfare against allies, and imperialist fantasies that belong in the 18th century, not the 21st. The President of the United States stood before microphones and confirmed, with a terrifying lack of self-awareness, that he has invited Vladimir Putin, a war criminal, a man currently orchestrating the slaughter of civilians in Ukraine, a dictator who has made the destruction of Western democracy his life's work, to sit on a so-called board of peace. Do not let that phrase slide by you. Board of peace. It is Orwellian newspeak of the highest order. By inviting Putin to this board, Trump is not seeking peace. He is signaling capitulation. He is signaling to the world that the United States is no longer the guardian of NATO or the counterweight to authoritarianism. He is signaling that the White House is now an open franchise for dictators to legitimize their conquests. This is not diplomacy. It is the demolition of the Western security architecture, performed by a man who views international relations through the lens of a mob boss exacting tribute. And how does he respond to those who refuse to participate in this charade? Look at his reaction to French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron, the leader of one of our oldest allies, a nuclear power, a key member of NATO, refused to join this phony peace board. A rational president would understand this diplomatically. A rational president would understand that France cannot sit at a table designed to whitewash Russian aggression. But Donald Trump is not rational. He did not offer a counter-argument. He did not discuss strategy. He lashed out with the pettiness of a scorned child and the power of an economic tyrant. I will tariff France 200%, he threatened. I will go after their wines and champagne. Let that sink in. He is threatening to incinerate billions of dollars in trade, to destroy American importers, to spike inflation, and to start a trade war with the European Union simply because a French leader hurt his feelings. This is the weaponization of the American economy to service the president's fragile ego. It is a violation of his oath to protect the economic well-being of the United States. He is willing to tax American consumers because that is what tariffs are, a tax on you, as punishment for a personal slight. This is the behavior of a king, not a president. It is the impulsive, vindictive reflex of a man who views the United States Treasury as his personal enforcement arm. But the psychosis goes deeper. It travels from the malicious to the utterly delusional. In the same breath, amidst the sweat and the manic energy, Donald Trump pivoted to Greenland. We have heard this before, and the media laughed it off as a joke during his first term. It is not a joke. It is a fixation. We have to have Greenland. I need it, he said. Listen to the verb he used. Need, not, it would be strategically advantageous. Not, we should discuss basing rights. I need it. This is the language of addiction. It is the language of a man who believes he can purchase sovereign nations and their populations as if he were acquiring a golf course in distressed debt. He mocked Denmark, a staunch NATO ally. He dismissed their sovereignty with a wave of his hand, claiming, "A boat went there 500 years ago. It is mine, and I am going to take it." This is not hyperbole. This is a threat of annexation. This is the President of the United States using the rhetoric of 19th century colonialism to threaten a peaceful, democratic ally. He is foaming at the mouth, demanding the acquisition of a territory simply because he wants to put his name on the ice. He justified this madness by claiming he did more for NATO than anyone else. A lie so brazen it collapses under the slightest scrutiny, all while actively threatening to steal territory from a NATO member. The psychological profile emerging from Miami is one of a man who has lost the ability to process the concept of other people. Other nations, other leaders, other laws, they do not exist to him as independent entities. They exist only as extensions of his will or obstacles to be crushed. This was made painfully clear when he turned his ire toward Norway and the Nobel Peace Prize. Here we see the wound that never heals, the narcissistic injury that drives his rage. He is obsessed with the idea that he is owed the Nobel Peace Prize. He attacked the Nobel Committee, claiming they are controlled by Norway, and that, I don't care what Norway says. But then, in a moment of cognitive short-circuiting that should terrify every neurologist in the country, he tried to claim he received the award anyway. He referenced a very fine woman named Maria Machado, who said he should get it. So I got it anyway from Machado, he rambled. This is where the forensic analysis reveals the depth of the decline. He is referencing Maria Corina Machado, the brave opposition leader in Venezuela fighting against the brutal dictatorship of Maduro. But in the same cognitive breath, Trump has sidelined her in reality to cut deals with Maduro's enforcers, allowing oil proceeds to flow into accounts that bypass sanctions. He uses her name as a prop to validate his ego, while his policies empower the very authoritarians she is risking her life to fight. He does not know who these people are. He does not understand the dynamics of the region. He only hears his name. If they praise him, they are fine people. If they don't, they are enemies. He is hallucinating accolades from people he has betrayed. And through it all, he gaslights the American public about the economy. He stands there, threatening trade wars that would devastate the supply chain, while claiming, inflation is over, the economy has never been better. He talks about the first year of his second term with a messianic delusion, ignoring the skyrocketing costs, the instability, and the fear gripping the markets. He claims we are the hottest country in the world, a phrase that means nothing, a salesman's empty pitch delivered while the store burns down behind him. He is asked about his message to Davos, to the world's economic leaders, and his response is a word salad of self-congratulation, claiming credit for 401ks that are being propped up by the very stability he is actively trying to destroy. But we must zoom out. We cannot look at Trump in isolation. A psychosis this public, this loud, and this dangerous requires enablers. It requires a system of complicity. And that is what we saw in the aftermath of the Miami meltdown. We saw the state regime media apparatus kick into high gear to normalize the insanity. We saw Sean Hannity, a man who has traded his journalistic soul for access to power, sit in his studio and try to justify the purchase of Greenland. He floated the idea of giving every Greenlandic resident $100,000, maybe $500,000. Think about the moral depravity of that argument. Sean Hannity, who rails against student loan forgiveness, who screams socialism when we try to feed hungry children in American schools, who calls universal health care a communist plot, is suddenly advocating for a massive wealth transfer to foreign citizens to bribe them into surrendering their sovereignty. He is suggesting the United States government write checks to tens of thousands of people in the Arctic Circle to satisfy the imperial vanity of a madman. We want to activate the economy, Hannity claims. It is grotesque. It is the logic of a predator who believes everyone has a price. They do not understand that the people of Greenland or Denmark or any free nation are not looking to be bought. They value their freedom, their culture, and their democracy, concepts that the MAGA ecosystem has apparently forgotten. Then came the parade of sycophants. MAGA Republican Senator Schmidt went on air to claim that Trump is acting in the interests of the American people by threatening to annex Greenland. He told us to look at a globe from on top. This is the level of intellectual rot in the Republican Party. They are reduced to cartographic gaslighting, pretending that a hostile takeover of an ally is a brilliant strategic move to protect the homeland. They are enabling a delusion. They are telling the emperor that his invisible clothes are actually a suit of armor. But there are cracks in the wall of silence. We must give credit where it is due. We are seeing voices of reason trying to scream over the madness. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego did not mince words. He did not use the polite euphemisms of Washington. He called it what it is. This is a madman. This is a demented man. Gallego, a veteran, understands the stakes. He knows that when a president threatens war or creates chaos in NATO, it isn't the sons of Trump who pay the price. It isn't Baron Trump who will be deployed to seize a weather station in Greenland. It will be the sons and daughters of working-class families in Ohio, in Arizona, in New Mexico. Gallego's warning was stark. He is destroying our world reputation because he is being petty. None of this is rational. And that is the core truth we must cling to. We cannot let them gaslight us into thinking this is 4D chess. It is not strategy. It is pathology. When Trump threatens to leave NATO or destroy it from within because he didn't get a Nobel Prize, he is putting every American life at risk. He is dismantling the shield that has kept the world from sliding into a third world war, all to service a hole in his soul that no amount of power can fill. The danger is spreading beyond rhetoric. We learned that the Trump regime threatened a French judge, Judge Margot Lafon, who was presiding over the case of Marine Le Pen, the far-right extremist and Putin sympathizer. Trump envoys harassed a member of the French judiciary on French soil. This is a direct attack on the rule of law in a sovereign allied nation. It is gangsterism masquerading as foreign policy. They tried to interfere in a criminal trial to protect a political ally who was embezzling funds. The French judge stood tall, she reported the threats, and justice was served. But the attempt alone is an impeachable offense. It is a signal that the Trump administration recognizes no borders and respects no laws. Even the domestic enforcement is taking on a darker, more militaristic tone. We saw Sean Hannity bring on Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino, defending the use of what many are calling Gestapo tactics. They laugh off the comparisons. They make jokes about trench coats and cold weather. "I'm just trying to stay warm," Bovino jokes. But the reality on the ground is not a joke. It is tear gas. It is detention camps. It is the dehumanization of migrants. When critics compare these tactics to the SS or the Gestapo, they are not talking about the fashion choices. They are talking about the brutality. They are talking about the 7 people who have died in custody this year alone. They are talking about the systemic cruelty that is being cheered on by a media apparatus that views compassion as a weakness and cruelty as strength. What we are witnessing is a systemic failure of the American experiment safeguards. The 25th Amendment was written for this exact moment. It was not written for a president who is merely unpopular or incompetent. It was written for a president who is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, a president who hallucinates conversations, who confuses allies with enemies, who threatens nuclear-armed partners over champagne tariffs, and who believes he can buy nations like real estate is, by definition, unable to discharge his duties. The Miami meltdown was not a fluke. It was a warning shot. It was a glimpse into the abyss of a second term where there are no adults in the room, no guardrails, and no tether to reality. The Republican Party has tied itself to a man who is mentally unraveling, and they are dragging the entire country down with him. They are willing to sacrifice NATO, the economy, and the rule of law to placate the whims of a leader who is no longer inhabiting the same reality as the rest of us. This is the anatomy of a geopolitical psychosis. The symptoms are clear: grandeur, paranoia, impulsivity, and a total lack of empathy. The treatment is constitutional, but the patient is in charge of the hospital, and he has locked the doors. We are in uncharted waters, and the storm is not coming. It is here. The waves are crashing over the bow, and the captain is screaming at the ocean to give him a prize. The question is no longer, what will he do next? The question is, what will we do to stop it? Because if we continue to treat this as politics as usual, if we continue to analyze these rants as campaign strategy, we will wake up in a world where the alliances are broken, the economy is shattered, and the American dream is just another property that was foreclosed on by a madman who thought he could buy the sun. You have to stay vigilant. You cannot afford to look away, not for a second. The exhaustion you feel, that is their weapon. They want you tired. They want you to think it's all too much, that it's all just noise. It isn't noise, it is the sound of the foundation cracking. If you miss a day, you miss the warning signs. Stay here, stay alert. Subscribing isn't just about watching a video. It's about refusing to be blindsided by history. Watch this space. We are the documentation of the decline, and we will not look away. But a madman screaming into the void is a tragedy. A madman with an army of apologists transforming his delusions into policy is a catastrophe. This is where we must shift our focus from the symptoms of the leader to the pathology of the system that sustains him. The machinery of complicity is firing on all cylinders, and its only product is the destruction of objective truth. Consider the spectacle of state media. We are witnessing the weaponization of rationalization. When Donald Trump floats the idea of annexing Greenland, essentially threatening a hostile takeover of a NATO ally's sovereign territory, the response from the propaganda wing wasn't concern. It was calculation. You have Sean Hannity, a man who purportedly champions sovereignty, sitting in front of millions of Americans and breaking down the bribe. He suggests offering $50,000 to $100,000 per resident, as if an entire culture, a people, and a strategic partner can be bought out like a distressed asset in Atlantic City. This isn't commentary, it is the laundering of insanity. He is telling you that international law is negotiable if the price is right. Senator Schmidt chimes in, framing this imperialist fantasy as protecting the homeland, gaslighting the public into believing that seizing Danish territory is a matter of national defense rather than the erratic impulse of a bruised ego. It gets darker. The complicity isn't just about geography, it is about morality. Look at the discourse surrounding the Epstein files. We are talking about a multi-generational sex trafficking ring, a web of blackmail and abuse that implicates the most powerful people on Earth. And you have Scott Jennings on national television telling the American people not to get their knickers in a twist over the obstruction of justice. Listen to that phrase again. He is reducing the systemic cover-up of child abuse to a minor procedural annoyance. This is the banality of evil in real time. They are conditioning you to accept that the law does not apply to the cabal, that demanding accountability for heinous crimes is merely a hysterical reaction from the opposition. It is a deliberate strategy to numb your moral outrage until you are too exhausted to care. This is why Senator Ruben Gallego's warning resonates with such terrifying clarity. He isn't speaking in the polite euphemisms of the Beltway. He is calling it what it is, the behavior of a madman. And he identifies exactly who pays the price for this madness. It won't be the Hannitys, the Jennings, or the Trump children who are deployed to enforce these delusions. It will be your children. It will be the young men and women from Arizona, from Ohio, from the working-class towns that these elites claim to represent, who will be sent to die in a conflict started because a leader felt slighted by a Peace Prize committee. We are seeing the erosion of the judicial firewall as well. The intimidation of a French judge in the Marine Le Pen case by Trump envoys is not just a diplomatic faux pas, it is the export of gangster tactics. They are trying to globalize their contempt for the rule of law. This is the anatomy of the collapse. The leader provides the chaos, the media provides the cover, and the sycophants provide the silence. If we do not break this circuit, if we do not refuse to accept this synchronized psychosis, we are not just spectators to the end of the republic. We are accomplices.